Right, so I feel like I need to make this video, guys, because a lot of you have been asking in the comment section how to get into radio. And that's a bit of a big question to kind of ask, or answer at least, in the comment section of YouTube. So I'm going to attempt to try and unravel it in this video. So normally what happens is somebody says, what do I buy? What do I go and get? And because it's exciting, isn't it? Like, you found something new, and you're like, all right, what equipment do I need? I just want to, buy something. And normally it's, do I buy something like a Baofeng radio or this little Retevis thing here, dual bander, or do I buy a CB, a handheld CB? I can see why this happens. I mean, these are really cheap. These are like about 20 quid. This particular model isn't, but you can pick up dual banders for that sort of money. This is obviously a little bit more pricey. This is a CB. So this is a VHF UHF radio. This is a CB. Two different things, can't talk to each other. So don't get two of these and expect to, chat with each other. It won't work. So let's start with the CB. So CB stands for Citizens Band. It's a band allocation of 26 to 27 or 28 megahertz, and it's worldwide. The channels might be different between different countries, but effectively it is possible for different countries to talk to different people. That's why we have so much fun on the air. This is a handheld radio. Now, the temptation is to go, yeah, I want to dip my toe in and play around with CB, which is awesome, and go and get a handheld. Now, if you do this, you'll probably be disappointed, because this sort of radio has a range with that antenna on it of about, I don't know, it could be as low as a mile. The range could be massive, even on this radio, if you went and stood on a hill somewhere. Realistically, you're going to get in your back garden and you're going to turn this on, you're going to flick around, and most likely you're not going to hear a thing. And this is what happens a lot. You sort of dip your toe in something, doesn't really work out, and you just get bored, and that's that. Now, you could try and put a bigger antenna on this. That does help. You could go somewhere high, as I've mentioned before. It depends on what you want to do. You might be happy with just, going out with the radio now and again, see what you can pick up. You might be lucky. You might get a bit of skip coming, which is the propagation happens and different countries start coming in. Chances are you probably won't be able to talk back to anyone on this sort of setup, but I wouldn't rule it out, because it can happen. Now, of course, you could be lucky. There might be other people in your area, or you've looked on a Facebook group, you found you've got some local CBers and they run nets at certain times in the evening, things like that. And you might even be able to reach them on something as simple as this. That'd be amazing if you could, because you can start enjoying radio right away. In reality, probably those stations that you might hear might be a long way away. We're talking maybe 20 miles plus. They could still sound like they're actually next to you, because these guys are pretty serious. They've got big antennas, some of them run power, and the chances of you getting back to them on a little radio like this, it's not going to be that likely. Also, 27 megahertz, the band that the CB's on, is full of noise, absolutely full of noise. It's terrible, because it's a bit of a dumping ground for like low power RF devices like key fobs, garage door openers. There's a lot of rubbish on there that causes a massive load of interference. So to get over that, this is pushing it. This is pushing it quite a bit. The other thing I'll mention as well is radios like this and sort of the low-end mobile radios that you see for cheap. You can buy package deals with those radios. These are normally FM and AM, like dual mode. They cover all the channels and all the kind of different bands for all the different countries, but they only allow you to run FM and AM. And I say only because most of the serious activity on CB is on the sidebands. It's not on FM or AM. So if you get one of these radios, you won't even hear it. And if you try listening to a sideband transmission on one of these radios, it sounds like Donald Duck's entered the building. So as you can see, handheld's good for what it is, but you might not have a lot of luck if you get one of these, and you might, be prepared to be disappointed. You're not going to turn this on, there's going to be people on every single channel, and you're just going to be chatting away like you would on Skype or anything else. This is not what radio is. You're going to have to hunt around to try and find somebody, and it's going to take a bit of work. That is part of the fun of radio, making a contact that might be a bit further away than you think that you can make. That's what it's all about. So what should you get if you're looking to start out in the hobby and you want to kind of maximise your chances of having success and making contacts and just getting going? So what you're looking for is a multi-band, multi-mode radio that does FM, AM, sideband, so upper sideband and lower sideband. And the most popular couple of brands I can think of off the top of my head are President and CRT. I would seriously look at the President McKinley. It's actually an amazing radio. I think they go for about 250 quid. You might be able to get it a bit lower. But amazing radio. I've heard them on the air. They sound absolutely fantastic. And some of them have outperformed some of the ham radio stuff. The President stuff really smacks through the airwaves and the sound is really good. President have been doing CBs for a long time, so they really know what they're doing. So I mentioned the President McKinley. Unfortunately, I haven't got one here to show you, but it's basically a mobile radio. It's designed as a mobile radio. It can also be used for home base, but what that really means is there's no battery and antenna with it like you do get on a handheld. Antennas, another subject completely. I can make a channel just about antennas, but you will need a decent antenna. And if you're using a mobile radio, maybe the best option is to use it as intended in a car. So you'd have like a kind of mag mount that fitted on the roof with the antenna on it. And then you'd run the radio off of the car's power supply, like the 12 volt line. You can get the accessory jack, so you can run the car from the accessory jack in the car, like the old cigar lighter type thing. But those do have a power limit, so you've got to watch how much power the radio runs. But if you buy a legal CB, like a type approved one, it will actually work and it'll be absolutely fine. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what CB's about, really. You can dip your toe in, buy a handheld or a cheap, mobile set, one of these packages with everything included. You might make some contacts, you might not. One thing I did forget to mention is CB is license free. You do not need a license to use a CB. So you can just go and buy a radio and start getting on the air and having a lot of fun. This, on the other hand, you should have a license for, but many people use these without. And because they're so cheap and freely available, lots of people have these and they use them for listening, for scanning, but you have got the potential to get yourself into trouble with one of these radios if you don't know what you're doing. So this is a dual band radio. It covers a massive wide range of frequencies in the VHF and the UHF band, mainly designed for use for ham radio and business use. Both of those require licenses, but many also use these on the PMR 446 bands as well. You shouldn't, but it does happen. And I've got to say they work really, really well on PMR 446 actually, because the antenna doesn't need to be anywhere near as big for these radios than it does for CB frequencies. So that will be very inefficient on the CB, but that will be very, very efficient on a UHF or VHF. Not so much VHF, but more UHF. And that's where PMR 446 is. So on the subject of that, of course, you should really get a license to use one of these. A ham license will actually allow you to use this to its full potential. And, you'll be able to talk to people up and down the country using repeaters. It's very easy to get a basic ham license these days, a foundation license. You can do the test online. I'll leave some links in the description so you can go and have a look at that if you want to do that. But it is the best way to start, using this radio properly. That being said, PMR 446 has really started to become an alternative and modern alternative to CB radio. So there's an increasing number of kind of users popping up all over the place. The difficulty with PMR 446 is because it's quite a high frequency, it's very line of sight. So if you've got lots of objects around you, like in an urban setting, the performance won't be that great. Whereas with CB, especially on sideband, it's not uncommon to talk to somebody 50 plus miles away. On this, you'd have to be up a pretty big hill standing on the top to do it. So it's kind of mainly local contacts. But my good old mate Lewis from Ringway Manchester channel has done a really good job in the Manchester area of getting people on PMR 446. And it's very busy now. If you look at any of the online SDRs, that's a topic for another video. But it's basically somewhere where you can kind of tap into what's happening in a certain area for activity. So you could use those to test your activity, to see what the activity is like in your area before you go and spend money on actually buying a radio. I'll leave some links in the description for that as well. But yeah, he's done a really good job of getting things going up there, and there's loads of activity, especially Sunday nights on Channel 8 at 8 PM. That's when a lot of people go on. And of course, you should be using real type approved PMR 446 radios for that, or at least turning the power down on this so you don't interfere with other users. So I hope that's given the newbies a bit of an intro into how to get into radio. Don't forget, this is kind of a community hobby. So, everybody kind of helps, and he's happy to help, newcomers to the hobby kind of develop skills and kind of get into new areas of it. There's a lot of sides to the hobby. We've got a ham radio channel in our Discord now as well. So that's starting to get a bit more activity as I've been doing more radio videos. So that's nice to see. Anyway, guys, that's it for this one. Hope you've enjoyed it. Catch you in the next one.
Yeah, 10 feet short of a monkey. Oh, dear. Mate, you know what I mean?
Are some local stations about?
Yeah. no consolation.
Oh, on the side.
Hang on a minute, yeah. Someone on the side out there. You're very, very quiet now, mate. But we are listening.
Hello, Tom. It's Andy, mate. I'm portable.
Is that you, Andy?
Yeah, Roger, that's me. I'm just on a handheld, mate.
Hello. Anyone there? Oh, right, Andy. Well, you're making a trip, mate. Very, very quiet now, mate. But no signal, but making a trip.
Yeah, no worries, mate. No worries. I'm just out walking the dogs, mate.
Oh, no, you give me £1. Yeah, I'll be generous. You give me £1.
No worries, no worries. Not bad for about 3 watts. 3 watts.
Where are you? Stansted all over your way.
Yeah, Stansted on a handheld.
Stansted on an handheld. Well, there you go, Cocker. There you go, Andy. Yeah, I thought that was you. I thought I recognised that bush.
No worries, mate. No worries. Right, I'm going to carry on walking.
All right then, Andy. Cheers, mate.